to go through the process of working with a whole lot of real estate professionals who are going to be helping you throughout this process. You're probably going to hear a lot of jargon. And one of the elements of the jargon that I really want to explain for you up front now in plain English is buyer's market versus seller's market. Now, this is really worth understanding because it has a lot of implications for what is going on in the market, and I'm going to explain it for you. So a buyer's market is essentially when the buyers have a distinct advantage at that point in time. So typically in a buyer's market, there is more inventory, so there's more people selling their properties than there are buyers who are looking to buy. Then in that scenario, the buyer has the advantage because, of course, there is a greater amount of buyers and they have more choice over what properties they want to buy. Properties end up being on the market for a little bit longer. It also allows you to put in offers that I don't want to say are more in your favor, but allow you to have a lot or enough conditions that you feel very confident about the process itself. Sometimes when it's in the inverse, in a seller's market, which I'm going to explain in just a moment, you can still get lots of great properties, or you can still buy a property that you really like, but the process can be a lot more challenging as a buyer. So the other market, like I said, is called a seller's market. And a seller's market is when it's the exact opposite. There are way more buyers than there are people who are selling their property. So that's when you get into scenarios with like crazy bidding wars, or properties will be sold within a couple of hours. That's where you may get some bully offers. And I'm going to explain all of these pieces as we get to the offer part of the course. But in a seller's market, you as a buyer need to be a lot more savvy. You got to have all your stuff together because the process is going to unfold a lot more quickly. Now, typically with the seller's market is where you may get some of the people on your real estate team encouraging you to put in offers that maybe don't have as many conditions, or an offer that's called a clean offer. So especially, you know, if you are in Toronto, I know things have slowed down a little bit now, but a year ago, and I know it's going to pick back up. I don't have a crystal ball, but I have this gut feeling it's going to pick back up. And so if you are in a hotter market where that's just the way things roll, you're gonna have to have all your ducks in a row together right up front. Now, don't be scared and overwhelmed, because as I go through each step of the process here, I'm gonna explain how to do it if you are in a particularly hot market where it's in fact a seller's market. I'm never gonna recommend that you have no conditions, but you may have to do a little bit more homework up front, or you may have to do some of the elements of the condition up front so that you really know, in fact, what you are purchasing. But it's important for you to understand what's going on in the market around you, because how the market is behaving is going to really dictate how you as buyer are going to be successful, and what are the things that you may need to do on your journey to buy a first home that may not exist in another market. So if we are in fact in a buyer's market, so again, that's when there's more inventory on the market and the buyer has the advantage, well, you can take your sweet time a little bit more. You can look at a property a couple of times. There's not going to be the same kind of crazy bidding wars. When you put in your offer, I want to make sure that you have got your financing. You're going to have a home inspection. You might even have an insurance clause, but it means that you have a little bit more luxury. You're also, from a negotiation standpoint, I'm going to talk about all this in a lot more detail when we get to the offer and negotiation section, but it means that you can come in at a price that's slightly lower than the fair market value of the property, because there's going to be that opportunity for negotiations. There's going to be a little bit of back and forth. You may put in an offer here and the seller may come down, and then you know, may take a little bit till you meet at a price that is acceptable to both of you. But know that if you are in a buyer's market, you've got just a little bit more breathing room in the process. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to mess the sellers around. It just means that you have the luxury of pacing yourself on a cadence that's maybe a little bit more comfortable for you. But you also want to make sure that you still know what's going to happen. And so, you know, all of the things that you're learning in this course here are going to get you there. Now, for those of you watching here who are in fact in a seller's market, the homework and the upfront pieces are going to be super, super important, because you are going to be competing with a lot of other bidders, a lot of other people who are putting in offers. And so, you're going to have to do more of your due diligence up front. Sometimes it might mean bringing a contractor or a home inspector with you when you are in fact looking at the property, and ensuring that you in fact know what you're going to get if you decide not to put in some of those conditions. Again, we'll talk about them a little bit more later. You're also going to have to be more flexible if you are shopping for your first home and you're in a seller's market. One of the bonuses is a series of interviews with realtors, and I've got both an amazing realtor, her name is Nikki from the Vancouver area, and Ricardo from Toronto. So they both talked about what to do in a seller's market. So if you haven't checked those out, I recommend that you do. And again, we're going to talk about this a whole lot more, but the reason I say this is I want you to know that you may need to be a little bit more flexible, and that could be flexible on your price. It could be flexible on the terms. If it's a property that is really, really coveted, there's lots of people, you go to the open house and it's like jam-packed, you're like a sardine looking around. When you put in your offer, you may want to not put in a closing date at all and let the seller just put that in on their own. But know that that could be a really quick closing, and you could close inside of 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Or it could be a really long closing. It might take 6 months. So I just want you to be mentally prepared for the journey that lies ahead for you. Now, if you're not sure if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, any real estate professional can tell you what's happening. There's all kinds of jargon and calculations to say, oh yes, this is a buyer's market or a seller's market. But I think the easiest way is just to ask your real estate professional, how many days on market is average? And you can see if a property is being sold in 2 days or 5 days or maybe even 7 days, then you're definitely in a seller's market. If a property is on the market and after it's been listed, it takes at least a month or 2 for it to be sold, then you're definitely in a buyer's market. And either way is totally fine as long as you know what to expect and you know what it's going to mean for you as a buyer and what you need to do. As soon as you know what to expect, you can take the right steps and you can still get into the home of your dreams. Now, I don't want you to stress too much about buyers and sellers markets, but it's just important for you to be aware so that you know what to expect and how other buyers are going to be acting and what you're essentially up against and what's the mindset of the sellers. Are they struggling to sell their property because it's a buyer's market, in which case, hey, you can start by lowballing them? Or is it, the kind of environment where if the property is listed for $500,000, there's no way it's selling for $1 less than $600,000 because it in fact is a seller's market. So again, don't stress too much, but it's going to help to set the tone if you understand what market you're in and how you need to proceed to be successful in buying a property in that type of market. In the next lesson, we're going to be talking about timing the market. So I'll see you there.